Tons everybody, Sean McDonald here, the Métis Man. Welcome to my YouTube channel.
I was born a Métis, born on Métis land, raised on a settlement, proud to be a Métis man. Well, today I work in white man's world.
Morning everybody. Hi, my name is Sean McDonald, the Métis Man, and I'm on here on behalf of the IRN. And I'm sitting here with Mr. Arnie Bellis from BC, and he's the president of the IRN. So good morning, Arnie. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'd like to start off just to tell me a little bit about yourself, a little background on yourself, please.
I'm from Hattagwai, a little village called Old Masset. Born and raised, worked in cannery, when I started when I was 13, and did that, over the summers and worked in nights, and went to school there, high school there, played basketball, involved in the community quite extensively in different organizations, and just being part of a little town, you got to chip in, right?
Right.
Did numerous jobs. I worked on fishing boats, as I said, and I had my own boat. I got into tree planting, bought heavy equipment, large investment into wood added value equipment. Have to be pretty versatile if you want to stay in a small town, because things change.
I bet.
You have to adapt and find something else if you want to stay.
Right.
Got married, raised 2 children who are now adults, and I still live in Old Masset. I'm older now, so my partner and myself, we have a little food truck, we call it, to sell food locally.
Nice.
Fish and chips and stuff like that.
Right,
and
right.
Yeah, so, and I still kind of involve myself with some of our nation's politics, not like I did. I was the vice president for years, and so I'm happy to move on, let the younger folks take over, and let nature take its course, and basketball coach, did that for 30 years, and one of the best things I did was doing that, because I had to change up a little bit.
Right.
From being a logger, fisherman, and weekend warrior, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I was lucky to be around older folks, like elders, that told stories and talked to me quite a bit about things in the past. And I don't say I know it all, that's for sure, but I do have a fairly good understanding of events. And but I've always looked at moving forward. Our folks taking the opportunity every time to advance their intellect and knowledge base, and to not stay in one level, so
right.
to speak. And I'm going on 68, and I still involve myself as where I can in our community, and try to help out here and there, and also pass on what knowledge I've gained, I guess. I was lucky. I never went to residential school. My mom and dad both worked hard, and we definitely weren't rich, but we always had 3 squares a day and a nice warm house, and
Right.
gatherings, birthdays, Christmas, and all those things, eh?
Right.
But like I said, we weren't rich, but we were very blessed to have all that too, eh?
That's rich in itself, yes.
Yeah, and I wasn't the best at school, that's for sure. And but you know, it took me a while to catch up and start moving ahead. And I took a literacy course when I was 35, so I could read and write better.
Okay.
Like every other old person, I'm struggling to catch up on technology.
Yes.
You know, starting off with a cell phone, of course, and going from there, right?
Right.
But all these things and life experiences, I became interested in the Indigenous Resource Network that advocate for First Nations people to get back to using the resources again. Haidas and other First Nations group have always used the resources within their region to build cultures and feed themselves and be as healthy as they can be.
Right.
And I still believe that should be done, and they could have a good look around their area and see what can work for them. But given now that time has changed, you know, we're in 2021 now.
Right.
It's a little bit more challenging. You got the environmental issues, global warming, multinational businesses and all those things, but we still have to, we have our place. I'm not going to say we don't have our place, but we have to maximize our place. And we have to believe, and I believe that younger First Nations people have the wherewithal to step in and accelerate. And you know, despite a lot of things that have happened in the past, it's still a shadow on us.
Right.
But we still have to learn from that too, and learn to move forward in a way that is good to us spiritually and practically.
Right.
And give folks the opportunity to have the best life they can. And that's not a goal that is out of reach. Every Canadian aspires to that. But the thing that we have to safeguard is our own culture and individual cultures, because that is Canada, they say, because Canada is supposed to be multiculturalism.
Right.
And it needs to be tested too. You know, we're not exempt from being productive, but we have to be productive for our own reasons and our own motivation, and have to find that within our own groups and nations.
Yeah.
And but also we have to be able to communicate with our neighbors and all our neighbors, not just First Nations, and do that in a productive manner and a respectful manner.
Right.
But we don't, and we shouldn't just give up everything,
Right.
you know, for the sake of money, as they say.
Right.
And we can't do that because, of course, we have to think of the other generations coming.
That's right.
And I'm lucky. I have a strong family, and my wife has a strong family. And to keep that, you raise a good person, and respectful person, and a respectful family, and then you have a strong community and strong nation.
Right.
But the strength of those things come from the individual. That's the start point. And I was lucky to have grandparents that were very, very good examples. And, you know, they did everything they can to hold things together. And they did, and they taught. And they taught me, and they taught my sisters and my cousins, and you know, but like every other family, we have challenges too, But
Right.
we have to address them as a family, or
Right.
a clan, whatever the case is,
Right. So Arnie, what changes have you seen, like speaking of changes over the years, since industry came into your area and that, what positive changes have you seen in the area?
I've seen industry largely ignore First Nations people at the start,
Right.
and they came in to make their money, and that pretty well did, And but I've seen industry they had to conform to speak to First Nations, and but I've always kind of questioned their motivation, because, you know, we had to take things to the Supreme Court for that to happen.
That's right.
It wasn't like people just said, here, we're going to be a good neighbor. It's not quite the way it worked out.
That's right.
And industry started to realize that, you know, from a constitutional point of view and from the rules of court, that they got to,
Duty to consult.
yeah,
Yes.
and some of them did before all those court cases. I don't want to roll them all into one basket, because some of them did. They just had that common sense about them to do that,
Yes.
And now there has to be more of an effort to make the wheel of industry in the circle of the culture to mesh. And in saying that, some of the old thinking's got to go.
On both sides. Yes.
You know, and I was taught to not be angry every day, but it's hard not to be. But you have to understand that government, provincial government exists, federal government exists, industry exists. You might not like it, but they're there, and you got to have a dialogue with them.
That's right.
But within that dialogue, you got to maintain your culture and enhance it, make it stronger.
Right.
And the IRN, we have a protocol agreement with all the towns up in the Fort St. John area, with those communities, and most folks, they're in a lot of ways are no different. They want to be healthy, have a healthy environment, and raise families, and be the best they can be as parents. And we're no different, they're no different. So
Right.
within that, you have a conversation.
Right. Right.
And you know, one of the largest instruments of segregation was the Indian Act, and but people have grown comfortable within that. But we have to look at that and say to ourselves, okay, does it create prosperity? Does it create evolution and all those things? And I find that in my history that some of the most things that we have done has come from industry. And Because industries, they're not tricky. They can be tricky, and sometimes they think they're tricky.
Yeah.
But an industry is pretty simple. Industry wants to make money.
Yes.
And governments, they got to get elected every 4 years or something, and they'll conform to whatever it takes to do that.
That's right.
And in doing that, sometimes First Nations people aren't on top of that agenda.
That's right. They're not much of a priority in some cases.
No, and so industry is pretty consistent.
Yes.
There's no written book, secret book on it,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And then at home, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. We are a matriarch society, matriarchal and society, and we should be. And our ladies have strong opinions, and they look at things maybe not in quite in the same way sometimes. But that system stood by us for 10,000 plus years.
Right.
So it works, eh? You know, to have that input, eh?
Right.
And you know, men, everything's Tonka toys and this and that, and
Yes.
maybe that's not quite the way to go sometimes, eh?
Well, that's right. Yeah. They keep us in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, God bless them too, eh?
Yes.
And yeah, so to stay true to who we are, and I don't think that people need to fearmonger amongst each other.
So speaking of that, Arnie, what are some of the misconceptions out there, you think, between Indigenous people like ourselves and the territories we come from and industry? What are thrown around there too much that you think are, well, that are not true, simply are not true?
I think that there's been a lot of information that's maybe a little bit iffy on projects.
Like coming from mainstream media kind of thing? And
That and some environmental groups that are pretty extreme.
right. All right. So Arnie, you know, I refer to you as our Ugamau, as we say in Cree, our leader. You're the president of the IRN, Indigenous Resource Network. Tell me a bit about the past couple of days we had in our meeting here in Banff, and what achievements have we made, and where do you see us going into the future?
We started about a month or 2 months after the COVID-19 hit hard.
Yes.
So we did most of our work on Zoom and things that, you know, like anybody else. We had a gathering in Fort St. John, I think in September,
Yes.
face to face, and that was good. But on this meeting, we got more of an opportunity to know each other more personally. And within that, I thought we had a clearer conversation
I agree.
and a more detailed conversation, and try to flush out where folks kind of stood, but what their aspirations were for this organization. And because we're advocating for First Nations people to go back to work in the resources in all sectors, and we're going to try to expand the organization across Canada. And so we're still very much in the development stage. And I think our messaging during the COVID was strong, as it could be during that point in time. And we got involved in some things that we had to be pretty careful, and we were, and respectful. And but I think that in the next couple of years, we'll work systematically at building our plan and our goals, but in doing that, we might become a target too. You know, not everybody wants First Nations to go back to work in the resources for whatever reason.
That's right.
And I can kind of see that coming up. But that goes with the territory these days in social media and stuff like that. But if we stick true to our belief, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And but also, we're going to add a couple more members to the team, and we'll strengthen ourselves. And I'd like to see like quarterly meetings between ourselves, and I would like to see every person on the group maybe take on a task here and there that they can accelerate in.
Right.
And that'd be great. I don't think, like, for myself, just I have to be the front of it. Other people could do that too, in whatever topic. And I think our executive and like our CEO, JP, he's a very capable man to set those stages, where people could accelerate that are within our group. And so the messaging is out there strong, and develop our brand name.
Right.
But we just can't talk. As you know, we gotta put our feet to the ground, and so production.
Yes.
And that's a word you don't really hear that much these days, but my dad drilled it into my head. You got to produce every day.
Exactly, yeah.
And you got to show production.
That's right.
You get some whiskey slick talker like me that could bedazzle people with nice speeches. That's great, but you got to show production.
Exactly, yeah. Talk is talk, but you need action, yes.
Yeah, and I really believe in that,
Same here, yes.
And
old school values, I guess you might say.
yeah, and old school values are still values today.
Yes.
But there is some changes, and that have to happen because of time and evolution.
Right.
And I recognize that, and so the organization itself, after this week, is in a position, as I said during the meeting, we're in a position at the point of history in Canada to accelerate, because we want to be part of the solution, and we want to involve ourselves with folks that want to do that too. And in the point of the history of Canada, I think more now than ever that it has to take place.
Yes.
And within that, there could be some subtle changes in governments at both levels in the industry, and that might get painful too, because you got cultures within those organizations, and they're not going to give up things easy. And when you do a certain thing a certain way for so long, you get kind of fearful of change,
That's right.
And I do too, Like, I'm not a young man no more, but we recognize that at this table, and we support each other in that,
Yeah.
And when you do change, you do need support by your colleagues.
That's right.
I have a real bad habit of wearing dark T-shirts and dark pants and everything black, right?
Yeah.
And my wife Sandy will look at me like, this T-shirt, holy smokes, aren't we changing today?
You're brightening up.
It's hard,
Yeah.
But you got to do it,
Yes.
From time to time, you got to change it.
Yeah.
And be meaningful change.
That's right. That's right.
And so, no, I'm excited about our group, and everybody is motivated right. And that's the difference.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Arnie, I think we're about done now. Any last messages you want to say to anybody out there, to the people listening?
I'd just like to wish everybody safe travel, be healthy, and hope that everybody has healthy children.
Well, thank you very much, Arnie, and I wish you safe travels too with you and your wife, and look forward to meeting in person again and doing another interview and getting this out there, getting the message out there. So
Okay.
Thank you very much, Arnie, for your leadership and everything. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you like this video, like and subscribe and share, and we'll see you next time. Eximaga, hi hi.